So Steve, let's talk about your noise oscillator.
Okay, so the noise oscillator in Serum has some kind of neat tricks up its sleeves. At its heart, it's just a high-quality sample playback. There's all of these default sounds that come with Serum that allow you to select a variety of noise types. So there's all these sort of analog noises, as you can see here. And then there's other sort of organic noise sounds and inharmonic sounds, which are sort of like the classic ones you get on like a Roland D50 or something like that. It's sort of almost atmospheric. And then you've got these really cool, like Sounds of Revolution, who's a great sound designer, contributed these atmospheric sounds that can be really sort of ethereal or creepy or spooky. So a variety of stuff that you can do there. And then, so that's for your more typical like texture that you're gonna try to mix in with your sound. And then there's, the other option is to use it more for like adding some punch or attack to the start of your sound. And that's where these attack samples come in useful. Some like kick drums I recorded here at Icon Collective, for instance. You can select the one-shot switch here. And this is what you'd want to do for an attack sound. That way it's not looping, but rather we'll just play once when we hit a note. So you can see here, if I hit a note, we should hear, if I turn up the volume a bit.
And I'll take the keyboard up an octave. There we go.
Right, so that's a kick drum sample, essentially. So you could layer that in with, of course, any sort of other sound and add a nice definition or punch. So that can be cool. The note below there here you can see is a little keyboard or key tracking. So that's going to enable pitch tracking if we want this sound to change sound on different keys. And you'd probably want that if you selected something like one of these more organically things like this, say, Horns of Fear, and we hit a note. Oh, sorry, up two.
And notice that right now, since it's not turned on, I can hit any pitch and it's playing just the sample. It's an original key, right?
That's right, and we have a pitch control, so we could set what that pitch is. But if we turn on the key track, now it's going to. Right, so that's that. Pitch control works in both modes, whether or not key track's on. Panning and level, once again, pretty self-explanatory. And then up here we have these two, this phase and random controls. So what these do essentially, phase is really like a sample start. So we're sort of, where are we going to begin in this sample? So you can hear it, for instance, on this sound. It sort of slowly moves in. I'll turn up the pitch a little. You can see if here it creeps in. We might not want that, so we can move this phase later to the sound. And now you can hear how it just comes right in.
You're starting in the middle where there's tones, it gives them more of an attack at that moment instead of a fade in.
Exactly.
Cool.
And then this last knob here is the random knob. And this is going to be a random sample start. In other words, if we don't want the sound to always begin exactly in the same place, but every time I hit a note, I might want it to move around.
Very cool.
So the more that this knob is up, the more that that starting position is going to be slightly more and more random, the higher that knob's value.
Nice.
Particularly nice for if you're using, say, a very textured noise and you're playing chords. You don't want it to sound too like phasey. You probably know that sound if you've triggered the same sample a bunch of times at once. It sounds just like almost like weird echoes on it. And if the random is high, it scatters it so much that it now just sounds like a bunch of different noises.
I love it. And you know, generally noises like the white noise and the other type of synth analog noises that you have in there, they're high frequency pitches. So that requires a finer detail resolution. You put a little bit of thought into the engine behind this one, right? So that it's a little bit higher quality than some of the average synths that are out there, right?
Yeah, it is. There's oversampling that's going on all the time, so it's playing back at a high rate of quality, you could say. And that the sound that's been brought in is, well, it's sort of techie stuff, but the sound that's brought in is needs to be band limited, which means that when you're trying to play back a sound that's not at its original sample rate, you don't want to start creating aliasing by having phantom frequencies folding back into the audible spectrum. So you need to band limit it, in other words, prevent frequencies that are above half your sample rate, or the Nyquist. And by doing that, you need to apply a low-pass filter, and you want that low-pass filter to be where it's not audible. And sometimes, in some sense, they cut corners. You can kind of hear that the high end's getting attenuated. That's not good for a noise oscillator. Of course, with noise, we want to get the highest highs to still be nice in a flat frequency response. So, yeah, it has a very flat frequency response, and it minimal aliasing at the same time.
In other words, it sounds good.